Sushi337 says, I don't know what you mean by real alchemy, but the one that was practiced and written down, it's not about a spiritual purification of some sort, but protochemistry and a lot more stuff like astrology, etc. Have a look at the Introduction to Alchemy, see a lecture by the channel called Esoterica, and you'll see what the academic consensus is on the matter. Okay, well, thank you for your comment, Sushi. I don't really care what the academic census is. This channel is about my interpretation, how I see, how I interpret the work of art called Silent Hill. And so we can debate all day long, but there's no utility in that for me, because it's not I'm not presenting something as an objective fact in the first place. So it's not like there's any debate really to be had, if that makes sense. Now my thinking is generally, I think and I present information and I understand things. The way I put things on my channel, the way I understand things, and what I want to convey is like overall thematic sort of, like here's the overall takeaway. Here's the theme, right? Because again, an intuitive contextual communicator is going to just kind of meander around here and there, but eventually tie all those pieces together and get to the heart of the matter. And that's kind of what I do. So there's really, in my estimations, there's two sides to alchemy, right? There's the metaphysical alchemy and the physical alchemy. And in a deeper sense, while the two of those seem disparate and they seem separate, they're really not at all. They're really not at all. And I mean, there's a lot that can be said about alchemy in both the spiritual sense or the physical sense, but suffice it to say that when I say real alchemy, because I think that's the main crux of this comment here. When I say real alchemy, to me, real alchemy is experiencing tangible results in the spiritual realm or within your own spiritual existence as a human being or whatever the heck we are on top of that. That's where the real alchemical gold exists for me. And I can obviously just speak for myself and present the material as I see it. So thank you so much for your comment, Sushi. Next comment from Kent Campbell. Silent Hill 2 might be one of my favorite wife murderers shadow work during psychological breakdown simulator. Thank you for the comment, Kent Campbell. Wife murderers shadow work during psychological breakdown simulator. Yeah, that sums it up quite well. Good job. Eric says or asks, why am I finding this till now? This is the channel that I ever wanted to find for speak and discuss that strange feeling grounded in this type of game or series or even real life. Hello, I'm new. Thank you for your comment, Eric. That's from Silent Hill 3. I like seeing those comments because, well, that series the Silent Hill 3 series, gosh, what was that? 2 years ago now? And I try to put content up here on my channel that's going to be evergreen. It's always going to have something to offer, even though the game came out forever ago, probably almost 20 years ago now. There's still something to be learned from these old videos and some sort of something interesting to discover. So thanks for your comment, Eric. Next comment. Thorough T asks, are you an occultist? If so, what do you study? And what are you currently reading? Okay, good question. I don't know what an occultist is. I mean, I've said this before. My impression of the occult before I really started learning about it was, you've got the devil, and you've got witches and demons, and you've got, all those, the Hollywood version, because I never really understood. I never took the time to understand what a cult is or anything like that. And probably, oh my goodness, 2009, 2010, I started listening to Mark Passio's podcasts, whatonearthishappening.com, and that really interested me, and I feel like I learned quite a lot from that material, learning about kind of the fundamentals, the occult basics. And then I really got off to the races once I discovered, because I was heavily interested in Carl Jung since I was in college. Once I learned that Carl Jung studied the occult and really derived a lot of his, I guess you could say, discoveries or what have you, but a lot of his work came through his study of the occult, then kind of something went off, and a light bulb went off or something, and I made this connection where, well, is it possible that the occult is some sort of it's some sort of body of knowledge that maps to human psychology in some way? And the answer to that is a resounding yes, from what I've studied. And so, and then to your other question. So I'm not. I mean, what is an occultist? I think to pin myself down into one area is just so limiting, right? And so yeah, I'm not an occultist, but I'm just a person who's interested in exploring topics and growing in my personal life and trying to share what I've learned with others. And so, I mean, I don't know what that is other than just a person, right? So I don't know if I'm an occultist, but I'm definitely not afraid of occult topics. And I've talked a lot about it. Heck, I have a book on my website, which I've been sitting on. I haven't done anything with it other than just made it available on my website. It's called How to Understand the Occult. And it kind of has so if you're interested in the occult, but you're thinking it's just devil worship and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it can be, but at the same time, you just like you have magic and you have black magic and white magic, you have, Gandalf the Gray, Sauron the White. You have these different characters. It's really about intention. It's your level of consciousness and your intention. What are you going to do with this? Everything in this universe, everything in this reality is neutral. It's what you do with it. It's the consciousness behind it, because everything essentially is consciousness. I'm not going to get into that too much. I can save that to another video. And then you're asking, what are you currently reading? Well, I've been reading this one. I've got a stack of books like you wouldn't believe. But I'm reading, this is Anthony Peake's The Daemon, A Guide to Your Extraordinary Secret Self. And this is a fantastic book. Now, Anthony Peake he takes a very scientific approach. And in this book, it basically talks about the dual self. You have the daemon and the eidolon. The daemon is this higher self, or this metaphysical self, let's say, to summarize briefly, that exists outside of time and space, that is connected to you in some paradoxical way. And then the eidolon is your manifest form. And you have this connection. And in the book, he talks about other, he talks about Fyodor Dostoevsky, and he talks about other writers and stuff who have explored these topics of the doppelganger, right? Because in Twin Peaks, there's this And this relates to the doppelganger in a big way, I feel like, with Twin Peaks, because, it's in the name, Twin Peaks. I mean, I'll get into it in my Twin Peaks video, my new Twin Peaks video that's coming out soon. But yeah, so I'm reading about this idea that is now Anthony Peake takes more of a scientific perspective on it, but he's open to these like esoteric spiritual topics. And this idea of the daemon and the eidolon is something that's found throughout many cultures throughout the world. It's not exclusive to like, one group or whatever, and it's found pretty much everywhere you look. You're going to find this idea. It was very fascinating. I'm only into like the second chapter, but already it's like, yeah, it's blown my mind. So that's what I'm reading right now. And then I have a bunch of other books. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. Okay, so next comment or question from Okamasphere. 6 videos in, and he finally talks about the show. Yeah, again, I went over this a little bit earlier, but that one gave me a chuckle as well. So, okay, next comment. Oh wow, here's one on The Legend of Zelda, and one that I'm surprised that didn't get as much attention. Okay, Reinstall Paul had to pause the video to comment. After your section with the Gandalf/Balrog, fun fact, if you didn't already know, you were more correct than you understand, because the Balrog and Gandalf are both Maya. So this is absolutely Gandalf having a showdown with his shadow. Now I shall unpause and hope you don't mention this and make me look terrible. Thank you for your comment, Apathy. And I'm not, so I do, my understanding of the comparison to Gandalf and Balrog and that's his shadow self and stuff, that wasn't lost on me, but I think there's a lot more to be said about that than I went into in that video. But if you haven't seen the Legend of Zelda video and the Triforce symbolism, and I bring in Plato and his tripartite or theory of souls, which I think is incredibly important, especially in this day and age. And also the who's the philosopher who is obsessed with geometry? Oh, the name escapes me. Anyway, I get into that. That's probably my favorite series of them all, because I'm just such a Legend of Zelda fan, and to find all of that material in The Legend of Zelda I was just so happy to find all that stuff. So thank you for your comment, Apathy. Let's go to the next one. Corduroy King says, I love this series of videos. I've been world building for 30 years in books, podcasts, and film. I have spent my last 10 years studying the unified field concept and TM, which is Transcendental Meditation. David Lynch has been a huge influence in the endeavor. Great job. Thank you very much for your comment, Corduroy King. Yeah, world building is something accessible to all of us, isn't it? And we start with our own world. We build our own world, and we can create the most harmonious, blissful world. And in this day and age of just everything seeming to just be a mess and falling apart and stuff, isn't it? I've experienced this myself. Isn't it funny that you can still, and maybe some people won't believe me, but if you don't try it for yourself, you'll never know. But you really can still cultivate an amazing sense of bliss throughout your day. And it's very easy to do, and it requires very little effort. And Corduroy King, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about if you are a meditator as well. So, thank you for your comment. Oh, another one. Another comment. I think the oven mitts were a way to disrupt Hawk's energy so that it did not mess with Cooper's intuitive insight. Just a thought. I would not disagree with that. That is as sound a theory as any, really, because Hawk is most certainly one of the wisdom keepers and one of the mystics in the show, along with Log Lady. So thank you. Next comment from Linus Spiegel. At 27 minutes 30 seconds, the dragon is not a reference for the reptilian brain. Dragons are a union of the four elements: air, flying, fire, magic breath, water, their lizard or amphibian appearance, and earth, their connection to mountains, metals, and crystals. But dragons lack morality. They have power, knowledge, and power without morals is the perfect formula to a monster. Yeah, so I would agree with you. According to you, that's how, it's true that is how you interpret it. For that specific video, what I was going for in my interpretation, I was interpreting the slaying the dragon in a psychological sense, because Silent Hill 2 is a very deeply moving, emotional, psychological story. And the way Japanese storytelling is oriented is it's not, you don't have a plot where you go from event to event. This happened and this happened and this happened. In the Japanese way of telling a story, it's more going to be this person experienced this, then they felt this, then they did this, and it's they're closely following the emotional state of the characters. And so that's kind of where I was going with it. And again, I mean, with my work as an intuitive, and my process is my own process, of course. And so I'm going to interpret it in the way that comes to me at that time. There's really no value in arguing in the objective sense to say, well, this is what it stands for objectively for everyone in all things, because that's just kind of preposterous. But I do appreciate you taking the time to make your comment, and you're not wrong in the sense that you understand it, but the value or what I was trying to convey just doesn't line up with your interpretation, if that makes sense. And that can happen. I mean, when we're talking about art, when we're talking about artistic expression and works of art, I mean, it really is subjective. So, next comment. Oh, this is a long one. This is from Alice Simpson. I am definitely no expert in the esoteric or occult, so I won't pretend I necessarily know any better, but I couldn't help but feel your definitions of masculine and feminine energies are patriarchal in nature. Outside of just the occult, there is a larger conversation about what it means to be a woman or a man, and how these things are subject and depend on the cultural view you're looking through. As science has taught us, biological sex, gender, and sexual orientation are incredibly fluid throughout all life, not just humans. I also just don't think any person having rape fantasies is about anything more than being able to exert control over past trauma. The vast majority of people with this fetish have a past with sexual assault, women being the largest population of victims of this due to the patriarchal societies they live in. Again, I would just like to know your thoughts about feminist teachings and how that affects your view of spirituality. I know when I started dismantling my inner misogyny, it completely changed my ideas about the masculine and feminine. Okay. Well, Alice, it definitely sounds like you're on the path, and you are making an effort to grow in your awareness of the energies. And I should say that it's a larger, we're talking about masculine and feminine energies. The understanding I brought to my Silent Hill 2 series really was through Vedic philosophy. And if you study Vedic philosophy, you can see this, and really if you study just kind of general Western occult esotericism, you can see this masculine and feminine energy in all things. And so masculine and feminine really just describes two ends of a very wide spectrum. And masculine and feminine doesn't have anything to do with it's not exclusive to human beings. It's not exclusive to men and women, right? Masculine and feminine, and then everything in between, and every aspect of those can be found in all things. And then through the Vedic sense is how I understand it. So all things, essentially, we all are the one thing. We all are Brahma interacting with itself. So I think where you need to grow, or where you need to think about, what you need to think about is this sense of separation, because this sense of us being separate, that's illusory. Men being separate from women, or being different, or the patriarchy of men somehow being separate, superior, etc., or even women adopting a similar attitude, in order to fight against, the injustices and all that sort of thing. All that sort of stuff is just a circus, and it's going to go round and round and round, and there's really not ever going to be any real resolution. And the reason there's no resolution is because in the ultimate sense, in the Vedic sense, is where I derive my understanding of masculine and feminine, there is no separation. And so really they're opposite sides of the same coin. So they're unified. And like I said earlier, it's paradoxes all up and down the chain. If you watch a little bit earlier in this video, I talk about the paradoxes that are just across the board, that are just everywhere. And so when you look at it in a purely energetic sense, and you transcend masculine, feminine, you transcend humanity, you transcend even time and space, you transcend everything that you possibly can, and you're just dealing with like essence, right? With Brahma. When you're dealing with this one essence interacting with itself, and you no longer are experiencing separation, then there is no more fight to be had. There is no more resistance. And coming into that understanding, I think is an important thing for everyone to try to, and it isn't so the funny thing is, it isn't something to be understood in the intellectual sense, because and ironically, that's the masculine sense. It's to come into the feminine sense of the intuition. This is the way to understand it. And, Albert Einstein said this, and there's a great video called The Divided Brain, where Lane McGilchrist, he's an MD and a psychologist, he talks about this idea of the intuition and the intellect. And Einstein has also said this, or he quotes Einstein, and Einstein basically says that the intellect is the servant of the intuition. Intellect is a masculine attribute. I'm not going to get into like the details of exactly why, but if you look into esotericism and occult studies, and even in the Vedic sense, it's the same thing. But the intuitive that's really where the intuitive's really running the show. So the feminine is the feminine energy, the generative force, the manifest force of creation that's coming in to the world. It's this sense of everythingness, or something coming into nothingness, this empty space, right? The empty space is the masculine, and it's also a correlate to the intellect. It's very cold, it's fact-based, it's just reason, rational, and it's black or white, it's binary, right? It's 0 and 1s, it's just computer code, right? And then you have the wonderful world of the intuition and the feminine and the creative sense. And so all of that area, that is where life is to be truly in this human form, or really in any manifest form on in this universe and life, that is where experience and life is to occur, is to be experienced, and that's where being truly is. So those two realms are actually reconciled, or they're reconciled in all. The all is as the Hermetic philosophy calls it. The all is reconciled in all of these, and all paradoxes are reconciled within that once you get into that deep level. So that's just something to contemplate, because the further division or the bickering or the blaming and that stuff, and obviously everything, there's no inherent fairness anyway. And it's not that we throw our hands up and say, there isn't something we can try to affect, but at the same time, we have to just recognize what is, and how these energies work. And once we work with these energies, then we can create balance and harmony in our lives. That's something that I experienced in my life, and everyone in my personal life, friends, family. There's a certain harmony that I experience, and I experience that inside myself on a daily basis. And so I would encourage you to look into a practice of meditation and come into contact with your intuition, and let the intellect just kind of dissipate, decouple from your sense of self for a while, then step back into the world, and I think you're going to see, you're going to experience the world in a different way. So I wish you well, and thank you for your comment, Alice. I appreciate that. And the next comment is from John Pauly Oshida. Reinstall Paul, old comment, but these videos feel like a magic user casually reviewing a game in broad daylight. Like I've stumbled on a YouTuber who belongs to a society hidden under our own. Like if a devil summoner did makeup reviews on ritual safe makeup or something. Thanks for your comment. Yeah, I'm just a normal person. I read a lot of weird books, and I watch a lot of weird documentaries, and I listen to a lot of weird people, and so it is what it is. So I don't know if I have much more to say than that, but I love these kind of comments because they're fun comments, and also they kind of recognize, hey, there's more to this. It's more than just a game, right? At least, Silent Hill's far more than just a game. There's a lot of very deep storytelling going on there. So, and it really is like, I go back sometimes and watch some of these, or I watch other people's analysis too, and to get some of the things that come out of that still come to me, still occur to me. I'm like, oh, I didn't really think of that. It's a really deep repository of intuitive knowledge. So thanks for your comment, John Pauly. And that is it. So thank you so much for watching. And go to my website, reinstallpaul.com. Please consider supporting my work by donating, and go to Odyssey, and I'll see you on the next one.